So the other day, it was revealed who the corporate officers were from the lawsuit filed by Janelle Grant against Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and the WWE. So the four corporate officers in the lawsuit, corporate officer number one was Nick Khan, who's the current president of WWE, TKO board member. Brad Blum, he's the current WWE chief operating officer. He's corporate officer number two from the lawsuit. The corporate officer number three, Stephanie McMahon, who obviously we all know is the daughter of Vince McMahon, but she is no longer with the WWE. And then you had corporate officer number four, Brian Nurse, who is the former WWE SVP, General Counsel, and Secretary. I specifically want to focus on Nick Khan on this video, and with Nick Khan, I was a little bit skeptical with Nick Khan, with everything with, supposedly being a childhood friend of The Rock, and barely being in WWE for 2 years, and then barely been in the company for 2 years, and then all of a sudden that stuff gets revealed about the NDA and the $3 million hush money payment back in June 2022. We hear a lot, rave review. A lot of people have a lot of high praise for Nick Khan, with the business deals that he's done and things that he's done. It's moves he's made to help WWE get in a really good place, financially. But with Nick Khan, though, with all this stuff, being named in the lawsuit and the information coming out here, so he was in the lawsuit, he was corporate officer number one. And with this, with Khan, it was, so on this here, I'm reading it here, that Miss Janelle Grant introduced herself to Nick Khan when they passed one another in the hallway. And Khan responded by telling Miss Grant that he knew exactly who she was. And this is something that, they were in different offices. He was on 1241 East Main Street. She was across the street on 1266 East Main Street, across the street. She had no physical presence in the building that Nick Khan was at. And I guess with this, being that she was just an entry-level coordinator, I believe she was in the legal department, she found that very odd that Khan would know who Miss Grant was at all at this point. And this was an encounter in March 2021. I think Khan had only been in the company for about 7 or so months, right? That is a little odd, if Nick Khan supposedly didn't know exactly what was going on there, and I'll get to that with how the WWE statement, how that was worded, but, if Nick Khan's making it a point to tell her, oh, I know exactly who you are, I know who you are, it's like, I worked in oil and gas, and I worked for a company called Wood Group, right, and I worked on a Shell project. It would be like somebody who worked in a Wood Group building, on a Shell project, they're in a Wood Group building at the bottom of the food chain, and that would be like the business service manager who's at Shell knowing who they were. It's a little bit surprising that that's the case, that he knew her, but unless, Vince McMahon had told Khan and told the other board members exactly what was, that they were in a relationship, and he maybe divulged a hell of a lot more than just that, just by just stating that they were in a relationship. And with this with Nick Khan, because Nick Khan is a very shrewd guy, a very shrewd businessman, and I've had, I was speculating, with Nick Khan, was this all a plan all along with Nick Khan getting involved in WWE? He's childhood friends supposedly with The Rock. He comes into WWE just 2 days after The Rock buys at the XFL from his former boss Vince. And I get into all that stuff. If you click on the top right, did The Rock and Nick Khan plan to oust Vince McMahon from the WWE? But Nick Khan is a very shrewd guy. And these business guys, there's not much morality there with these guys. And Nick Khan, I'm sure, is well aware. And, it probably didn't take him too long, when he first joined WWE to know exactly what Vince McMahon is like. We all hear the stories. We all hear about how people have said before that the Vince McMahon character, you know, while he's bad, the Mr. McMahon character, that behind the scenes that he's even worse. But with Nick Khan, though, there is a clip. This is from a podcast in 2023, the Bill Simmons podcast. And bear in mind, this was, December 2022. It was Nick Khan, Stephanie McMahon, and Triple H that basically said, we don't think this is a good idea, Vince. We don't think you should come back to the company. You could say it was very much, they're thinking, the best for business. We always heard that from the authority back in the day, best for business. We do what's best for business. And I think in their own warped minds, they really do believe they do that. But then Vince was pushing for it. There was a letter, like a professional style letter from Vince, but it was easy to read through the lines. He was basically saying, I'm fucking getting back into the company, and I'm going to be, running things, and I'm going to be the one there to, with being involved in the sale of WWE. But with this clip here, listen to this, what Nick Khan says, where, initially he was like, no, we don't want you to come back, Vince, but then later on, Nick Khan said, yes, no, come back. Stephanie steps down, then Vince comes back in January 2023. But listen to this clip from Nick Khan. You get a little bit of an idea of what Nick Khan's like. And it's all business and all the stuff about morality and, potentially, Vince could have done, the stuff that Vince had done to this poor woman. I'm sure Nick really had an idea of what went down there, even if Vince McMahon didn't directly tell him everything. But listen to this clip here from the Bill Simmons podcast that Nick Khan was on back in January 2023.
Okay. So let's unwind this. Vince McMahon steps down a year ago. All these revelations about different NDAs from years ago goes in the Wall Street Journal. He steps down, and it seems like he's gone. Then he goes on SmackDown. And just watching him from afar, the whole thing seemed insane. It was like, is this guy stepping down or not? Why is he on a show? Is he still around? People are wondering if it's a work. And now you have 10 months later, it really is starting to feel like the real life version of HBO's Succession, where Vince is now, he did what seemed to be from afar like a board coup d'etat. Stephanie stepped down. There were rumors you're going to sell to Saudi Arabia, which I never believed. But from we're watching this so far, this seems insane. What is it like to be in the middle of this? Does it seem less insane? What are the misnomers? Like how real is all of this?
So I, from the inside, it's not that insane to me, but it's also, again, the word insider, when you're on the inside, you sort of see things that might be coming and know what might be coming. My thought has always been there's only one boss at WWE and it ain't me. Vince is obviously the founder, creator of the company. He's also the controlling shareholder, which is, that's not a work term, right? That's a legal term of art. So I think it was always my point of view, always Stephanie's point of view. At some point, he would come back. I think the way that he played it, to me, was smart, Bill, in that he went away for 5-6 months, which people, meaning the audience, seems to like when somebody does that. And he came back and took control back of his company as the control shareholder. So it is the public's company, as a publicly traded company, but with that controlling share, gave him a lot of authority, and he used it, and I applaud him for doing so.
So there you have it there. He applauds McMahon for the move he made. We're coming back in and just stepping away for about 6 months. So you had it there. He said about Nick Khan himself, Stephanie, that they were aware that Vince McMahon was going to come back eventually. And that's the thing. It's just business with these guys. Business. There is no morality there. He probably deep down must say to himself, in his heart of hearts, he must think all this stuff about NDAs, which the guy Bill Simmons brought up. This stuff is probably true, but again, this is just for guys like Nick Khan. It's a big money grab. You know what I mean? It's a big money grab, and there's no room for morality, I guess. But I suppose you could say and justify what Nick Khan was saying, that but he's very much applauding Vince for what he did, and you could say, well, that's just Nick Khan, that's hindsight, maybe at the time he didn't think it would be good for Vince McMahon to come back. It was kind of like a thing with Nick Khan, it was, oh, don't come back right now, Vince, but maybe give it a little bit of time and wait for this to die down. But then again, Vince, no, he said, no, I'm going to come back. You can't stop me. And eventually he did. I think ultimately it does seem fishy, right? That Nick Khan didn't want Vince to come back, and this was December 2022. Not even a month later, then he's on a podcast once Vince McMahon is back, and he's applauding Vince for the move that he made. Tells you a little bit you need to know about Nick Khan, really. And I remember Stevie Richards was speaking on the podcast that Vince Russo and Ben Hameen, that he does with Vince Russo and Ben Hameen, and he was saying that, when it comes to guys like Nick Khan and Ari Emanuel, they're not the white hats coming to save WWE from the evil, Bruce Pritchard, Michael Hayes, and Triple H. These guys they're operating at a much higher level. They are calculated bastards. Nick Khan, that is very much what Nick Khan is. I'm not a Nick Khan fanboy. I'm not putting over Nick Khan. Well, a lot of people have done. I think a lot of the people in the internet community have put Nick Khan over, and I will get into that in just a minute. Why I think that's quite ridiculous. But there's something else though with some of the YouTubers, podcasters, that with this stuff coming out with the corporate officers being named, there's a certain narrative that some people are running with, and it's maybe just a case that they think they're right but they're wrong, or they're running with this narrative because they're so anti Vince McMahon, and this narrative that it's Vince, with these people being named, that it's Vince throwing them under the bus, that he's throwing Nick Khan, Brad Bloom, the guy Nurse, and his own daughter Stephanie under the bus with these names being revealed. That's the narrative that certain people I've noticed of running with. And this, though, if we're to go by what came out, and if I go here, this is Front Office Sports, and it was an article. It's by the guy Brandon Thurston. He's been doing a lot of good work into this. That this isn't like Vince McMahon getting these names leaked publicly. That Front Office Sports independently verified Khan and Blum, as well as two other anonymous corporate officers to whom the suit refers, by cross-checking the details of the suit against publicly available records like online resumes and corporate filings, as well as information provided by sources familiar with WWE. They asked Janelle's Grant lawyer, Ann Callis, and she did say, I confirm that these names are correct. But then you get people that are saying that this is Vince getting these names put out there of the officers to, like, I guess, alleviate some of the heat away from Vince. And I don't think that doesn't make sense. If we're going by this at face value, that they've independently identified the officers. Brandon Thurston's been doing a lot of good work into this. So it looks like they independently identified Khan and Blum with this. It's not Vince McMahon, putting these names out there. That there was this, the work that Brandon Thurston has been doing, with this, and then they figured out who the exact officers were. I think some people maybe speculated it was Triple H one of the officers, or I think Ryback thought maybe Kevin Dunn might have been one of those officers in the lawsuit, but they weren't. They aren't the people that are part of that. The corporate officers that were in that lawsuit filed by Janelle Grant. But with this, I was saying that about people throwing Vince under the bus, and the truth is enough with that. You don't need to start putting the whole Vince throwing the officers under the bus narrative out there, when it doesn't look like that's true. But there's a guy that's running with this narrative, and it's a very kind of clickbaity title from JD, I always have to yell, from New York. he put Vince McMahon reveals his corporate officers in General Grant lawsuit, and I think in his thumbnail he put about Vince throwing people under the bus or whatever. So I'm going to play a brief clip from JD from NY's podcast last night. And again, this is like the Vince McMahon, I hate Vince McMahon narrative that they're running with, and they're staying on that bandwagon. And, you can hate Vince for a lot of things, but you don't need to just make shit up to suit your narrative. That I'm not down with. Because, he's gone in these real vicious rants before, this guy JD, about basically like the CM Punk type rhetoric from the Pipe Bomb promo that, WWE will be better once Vince McMahon's dead. That's practically a quote from this guy JD. But I'm going to play a brief clip of this and I'll react a little as I'm going along.
The one thing that I'm actually shocked by is, and I don't know if this is the case or not in this situation, I feel like Vince is trying to make a power play because he's running out of moves here, and he's looking to throw anybody and anybody under the bus. So I'm surprised to see Stephanie in this because, yes, we know she knows a lot and knew of what was going on, and the reason why she left was because of what she knew, and she didn't want anything to do with her father. But obviously things are coming back around here. Why would he throw his daughter under the bus like this? Of all people, his daughter.
Jump into conclusions a bit.
I'm gonna pass on commenting on Stephanie just because I don't know the details and I don't want to assume things, nor do I think that Stephanie truly knew exactly what was going on. But I want to go back to what you said about Vince.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen, the devil is always in the details, how many times have we seen Vince McMahon fight with every ounce of his being and deny with every ounce of his being things that have come up or lawsuits that have been presented against him, steroids, this person, that person, all this other stuff? Vince will vigorously defend himself and deny all allegations. He did nothing with this besides put out a statement, and that was it. We have not seen Vince go on anywhere, television-wise, media-wise, nothing. And I get it, his lawyers are probably like, stay away. But that's how you know that, unfortunately, this stuff is real.
Yeah.
I don't believe Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan knew that Vince McMahon was doing some of the things that he was doing in terms of the grotesque actions that Vince was doing, nor do I believe that Stephanie and Nick Khan knew that Vince was passing around Miss Grant to maybe other people, as the lawsuit states. Do I think that they knew that Vince was having sexual relations? I feel like I'm Bill Clinton. Do I feel like Stephanie and Nick Khan knew that Vince was having sexual relations?
Of course they did. Yeah.
Of course they did. It's stupid. Yes, of course. Stephanie knew that Vince and his former wife Linda were no longer romantically involved. They were just staying together for, the public eye and everything else like that, because you don't really want to have that while Linda was running for this and doing that, still staying into politics, and also Vince was trying to negotiate billion-dollar deals, and all of a sudden a divorce doesn't look good. It looks bad. It looks like you can't stay loyal and you're not willing to keep your promises. So you don't do that in business. You don't let that divorce get public until all the business deals are done, which they pretty much are now. But Vince fights, and he's not fighting. I haven't heard anything from Nick Khan, but they did say in that statement that Nick did not know everything that was going on, which I think is key. I think that's why Nick will be saved. The same thing with Stephanie.
Right, yeah, so supposedly Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon didn't know everything that was going on. And yeah, smartly worded, because then there's that, plausible deniability there for Nick and Stephanie McMahon. I mean, first off, like I'm saying, it's the narrative that this guy JD tries to run with. It's like, right away, he's asking that question, why would you throw your daughter under the bus? And I thought Andrew handled the question quite well. He didn't want to jump to assumptions, which, JD is obviously trying to do to fit his narrative. JD at the start says, well, I don't know if this happened or not. But then you can tell from when he keeps going on and on about it and saying, thinking it's a power play, this, that, the other. That's what he's intentionally trying to put out there. And again, is this just him? Because, it'll be his agenda. with Vince, and you can have an agenda with Vince for a lot of things, but you don't need to just try and like pluck stuff out of, you know, thin air, kind of, you know, like him saying Vince McMahon reveals his corporate officers in Janelle Grant lawsuit is clickbaity as fuck. You know what I mean? And it's like, he's got enough subscribers, he could get enough views. You don't have to have that super clickbait type headline to lure people into watching your you know, your live stream. That's I guess that's just how the YouTube game works. But it's, you know, Nick Khan, Nick Khan, by the sounds of it, you know, he was well aware that a relationship was going on. But the question, did he know a lot more of the juicy details from Vince about the relationship? You know, with this stuff with, you know, Nick Khan, you know, the suit claims that Khan and Blum, whose names have not been previously reported, were instrumental to a scheme in which the plaintiff, a woman named Janelle Grant, was employed in a completely undefined role, except for the understanding that she remained a sexual slave to be used and trafficked by McMahon within the WWE. Unlike McMahon and Laurinaitis, the two are not personally accused of sexual misconduct or violence. The suit claims that they and others facilitated and covered up exploitation in ways that make WWE liable under federal anti-trafficking law. So the question I've got, if WWE, if they're liable under federal anti-trafficking law, if Nick Khan and Brad Blum, the CEO, covered this stuff up, and how much deep shit will both Nick Khan and Brad Blum be in that case? I believe Brad Blum, so he was there before, you know, remember, she met Vince around WrestleMania time of 2019. Nick Khan joined WWE in August of 2020. So if Brad Blum was there longer, he could be in a lot more trouble, more so than Nick Khan. But still, overall, that doesn't look good at all. That, you know, they're saying that they were instrumental in a scheme, and then that she would remain a sexual slave to be used and trafficked by McMahon within the WWE, and they were part of that said scheme. You know, I thought that, in my mind, I was thinking maybe there's something to this theory that Nick Khan and The Rock wanted to oust Vince McMahon. They knew all the information, they had all the dirt on Vince with this stuff with Janelle Grant, and it was very much like a chess game. They partnered up with Ari Emanuel, or maybe worked Vince into getting, you know, doing a deal with Ari, even though there was better deals on the table out there. But it doesn't. The only thing I've got with this though is it doesn't look good on Nick Khan from what you're reading here. And again, from playing that clip where, you know, he's praising Vince, you know, for, oh, it was such a great move, smart move, man. It's like, this guy doesn't really have a moral compass, right? And but that's The Rock's buddy, right? His childhood buddy. He even sounds a little bit like The Rock as well. Did you not notice that from the clip? But The Rock doesn't strike me as a guy that would be ever getting involved in stuff like that. But you never know. Rock might just be better at just, you know, being able to not leave a trail behind, so to speak. But then with this, Khan's involved in this stuff here. You know, being the corp officer number one, he knew who Janelle Grant was. He said he knew exactly who she was. I can almost imagine like Nick Khan saying that in like a Vince McMahon type way, like when you cut a promo, like, I know exactly who you are, kind of thing. And you know, Vince in the text messages claimed that, you know, he was passing along pictures and videos of Janelle Grant to the crew. Which I imagine the crew would be like, you know, people that work there in gorilla position, you know, the people who were there in you know, like the production meetings before like a television taping. So this was supposedly going on, and maybe Vince was just saying this stuff just to fuck with her head. But let's say if it was going on, and Vince has no problem passing around these pictures and videos and stuff like that. Would Vince do the same thing with the people, you know, on the board, the corporate officers, and the people that he's always in those corporate meetings with? Would he have revealed that information? Would Vince not feel maybe a little bit? He would feel uncomfortable, almost embarrassed to be set, getting involved, revealing all the juicy details behind the relationship with himself and Janelle Grant. I don't know, but you know, as much as these like guys like JD and people like that who have their anti Vince McMahon agenda, and they're big WWE fanboys, and you know they're the people that want to like, and he gets into like praising Nick Khan for like a great businessman. It's funny, like all these people who are like Marks Wrestling, all of a sudden they're like praising Nick Khan when like they never gave a shit about the business financial side before, but they're always putting Nick Khan over. It's kind of funny, don't you think? But you know, these guys aren't, you know, the White Knights like Nick Khan, Ari Emanuel, and again, you know, Nick Khan even said it in that clip with Bill Simmons. They're aware. They knew stuff was coming. They knew that it was going to get out there eventually. You know, that was all calculated with getting that, announcing the deal with Netflix that Raw's going to have with Netflix a couple of days, was it a day or two before the stuff being revealed. That was Janelle Grant filing the lawsuit against Vince. And then Stephanie as well, you know, it's the whole thing with Stephanie wanting her to be close with her in meetings, right next to her. I don't know if that's just a thing of like two women sticking together so she feels more comfortable, Stephanie, or is that like a thing where there's meetings and Vince is there and she just wants, you know, Janelle Grant to be the hell away from her dad because she finds it a little bit, she's a bit creeped out by it. I don't know. I mean, when you think about it, like, that's her dad, and then he's seeing a guy that's, She was a few years younger than Stephanie McMahon. So that's a little bit strange for Stephanie to deal with that. But yeah, Nick Khan, though, I mean, it will be interesting to see what happens. And if WWE, this could be bad. If WWE are liable under federal anti-trafficking law, that's no joke. I just wonder what could happen there with Nick Khan and Brad Blum. The Nurse guy is a little bit of the different case. Nurse was the guy that was like, you know, quite, you know, he gave off quite a funny vibe towards her. Anytime he'd see her, he would walk the other way. He was involved when she was, I think she was looking at getting a promotion in the company or something, and he barely asked her any questions. You know, Brad Blum, Nurse probably knew what was going on. I mean, Nurse is not there anymore. Nurse was probably aware of the rumblings, the stories, and apparently Vince had said to Janelle Grant there's rumors of a relationship. I think that Nurse probably had this relationship of, this mindset of, he might have had the mindset of, oh, I just want to not be involved with this at all. I know she's just there being like a toy for Vince, like a piece of meat. I just don't want to be evolved around that and interact with somebody like that. You know, just, I guess from his own moral point of view. But then he might have had the mindset of, oh, you know, Nurse towards Janelle Grant of, oh, you're only here because you're sleeping with the boss. That might have been his mindset there, that guy Nurse. But it will be interesting to find out what could happen there as far as Nick Khan is concerned. If WWE is liable under federal anti-trafficking law, what type of trouble could Nick Khan be in, and then the COO Brad Blum be in? Could they be in some really deep shit right there? I mean, it's just going to be really interesting to see how more and more of this plays out, and there could be even more allegations out there, not just the Janelle Grant, you know, other women there, but then maybe they've all been paid off, and they're silenced, and you know they might never speak out. But that's my video for now, guys. So give me your comments on this. Give me your take. What's your thoughts there on this stuff with Nick Khan and Brad Blum, and also your comments on the whole thing with Stephanie McMahon being named, and then with the fourth officer and Nurse as well. But that's my video for now, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye.